Hey everyone! Today's Wasteland Spotlight is the long abandoned and much abused Rock-A-Hoola Water Park at Lake Dolores. Situated alongside Old Route 66 in Southern California, the ruins today stand as a testament to financial folly in the ever-expanding race to create economic growth in even the most unsuitable of places. The desert is a vibrant and beautiful place, but it can be very unforgiving of those who try to establish a little too much civilized opulence in a place where civilization is often unwelcome and resources are so critically scarce. This barren oasis in the Mojave may just be more popular now in abandonment than it was during its brief heyday as a tourist destination. So, join me for another exploration today as we take a look at the birth and the death of America's first water park. I hope you enjoy the adventure, and welcome to the Wasteland.
Refreshing oasis that is the all-new Lake Dolores Resort and Rock-A-Hoola Water Park. Boasting 18 brand new aqua attractions, the all-new Rock-A-Hoola Water Park offers something for everyone. A fabulous destination for friends and families, there's so many great things to do at the all-new Lake Dolores Resort, and Rock-A-Hoola Water Park has no shortage of smiles.
We can start off our adventure here driving up out of the bottom of the dry lake that used to be completely full, the water having been pumped in from the natural spring that is still producing water nearby, as evidenced by the plant life. We can see a few of the outbuildings here in the distance. There is one of them that used to be the showers and changing areas for lake swimmers. Once upon a time, there was water on either side of this driveway, but not anymore. Without the pumps and machinery to draw water from the spring, it doesn't take long for it to get reclaimed by the desert. Something to remember is that even though this spot obviously wouldn't make a very good base post-collapse, it's always a good thing to keep track of the location of natural springs and water sources like this. In a desert environment, a water spring will not only be a critical resource, but a potential source of game as well. Pulling up here, we're at the back end of the park at the base of the old slide hill close to the lazy river. We'll hop out here and get to exploring this place, starting with a hike up the slide hill for an overall view. While I walk and fly around, let me give you a little bit of the story of this particular point of interest in the Wasteland. Just off to the side of Interstate 15 between Los Angeles and Las Vegas in the town of Newberry Springs, that's where our spot sits. The remains of the very first water park in America. Originally opened in 1962 by a man named Bob Byers as a man-made lake and recreation area built atop a natural spring and named after his wife, Dolores Byers. Lake Dolores came to feature several attractions based on or around the water. A campground also made Lake Dolores a destination for locals and a stopover for families driving across the 15. However, nice as it was, declining attendance would eventually lead to the park's closure in the late 1980s. Bob sold Lake Dolores Water Park in 1990 to an investment group, and the park was rebranded and reopened in 1998, now called the Rock-A-Hoola Water Park, with a new 1950s Route 66 theme and new rides more consistent with a modern water park feel. Unfortunately, the good times at Rock-A-Hoola would only last a couple seasons before one of the employees took a late-night ride down a slide into a partially filled pool. The disastrous landing turned the employee into a paraplegic, and the settlement that followed cost the attraction millions of dollars. Rock-A-Hoola was never able to fully recover before massive debt forced its closure. The owners later claimed to have lost many millions of dollars on the investment, and the investment group itself declared bankruptcy shortly thereafter. Ownership then reverted to Dolores Byers since old Bob died in 1996. Let's get a bird's eye view. Dolores Byers again sold the property in 2001, and after another renovation, the park would open briefly as Discovery Water Park in 2002, only to close again following the 2004 season. This would be the last time the park would operate as a functional water park, though after its closure it would seem to take on another life as a magnet for rogue artists and filmmakers. In 1999, the water park was the site of the EDM-centered festival Electric Daisy Carnival, attracting an estimated 10,000 people. The event actually represented a major turning point for EDC as it grew from a smaller underground rave into a larger-scale festival, a so-called massive, which helped establish the Southern California rave scene. In the years since the park has closed, the allure of a decaying amusement park visible from the freeway has brought graffiti artists, filmmakers, skaters, musicians, and dirt bikers, not to mention the inevitable desert scrappers that come to raid anything left unattended these days. Such predations, coupled with the park's isolated location away from any development and the passage of time, has left the buildings more and more damaged. Nearly all of the park's water slides had been removed and sold to other parks early on, leaving the park an even more shell-like appearance of its past. The final owner and lake namesake, Dolores Byers, died at age 79 on October 29th in 2001 and was interred at Sunset Hills Memorial Park in nearby Apple Valley. There have been no more proposals to renovate the park and the land surrounding it, and certainly no efforts to reopen as a water park. Rock-A-Hoola remains a shell of a former amusement park, attracting interest and curious attention for a brief moment for those making the drive between Southern California and the southern Nevada Mojave Desert. Back on foot, let's get some close-ups of what little is left. As you can see, there's not a single square inch of signs or walls that has been left untouched by graffiti. I understand that many people see it as art, and some of it is pretty cool looking. And honestly, when it comes to long abandoned places, I could care less about the aesthetics. The problem I have is that such attention usually comes with structural vandalism, looting, and other destructive activity. One of the few remaining buildings that hasn't either collapsed or been burned to the ground is the spot my friends and I call the bunker. Really, it's just the old restroom building towards the front. It's hardly a bunker, but it is fully built of concrete and cinder block, and it's the most sturdy place here. If you had to take shelter in the area, this is where you'd want to do it. The central area makes up the old wet wall, where the plumbing features of the fixtures in the rooms to either side could be accessed. Even inside, the graffiti is pretty thick. Little else remains after our scavengers have come to pick the place clean over the years. Intact doors are another bonus for this place, as again, if you needed to take emergency shelter from the elements or a dust storm, this would be your best bet. Bare bones in here, the fixtures long gone or broken up. There are a few old divider panels on the floor that I'm walking over, and I suppose they could be of some sort of use in a post-collapse future. We can head over to the other side for a quick peek. More of the same. One noteworthy purpose that this may serve for us in a post-collapse reality is as a rally point or a temporary way station when venturing out. We also keep track of such places because they're well-known landmarks and thus places where other less prepared folks may think to gather and such. It is shelter and there's a water source nearby, so there's worse places one could end up. Back outside, it's crazy to me that even the ground out here could not escape the graffiti artists. The place is nothing if not colorful, that's for sure. These artists are probably the types that'll be spray painting their mouths chrome in the post-collapse future. This first burned out shell here used to be the old ticketing building according to the map of the original park. Many of the buildings here have been set on fire for no apparent reason that I can come up with other than the seemingly innate human need to destroy things. It really is too bad, and if you look at some of the earlier YouTube videos showing this place, it's much different. Only a few years back, me and my group came here to do a T4E training operation, similar to paintball but using hard nylon glass breaker balls instead, which keeps people honest. Anyway, almost all the buildings were intact back then in 2021. Next door is one of the buildings that's still somewhat intact. This is what's left of the old Made in the Shade gift and souvenir shop. Still got intact walls and roof, so that's something. Across from me here is the burned out shell of the old Video Wave arcade. Nice to see that my drone avoided that palm tree nicely in automatic flight mode. Doing pretty well today with 18-mile-an-hour winds. Now we're coming up to the main gate to the park, and we'll head inside for some more sights. The water park sign has been losing letters lately, and that last A looks ready to drop soon. Going through the turnstile puts us in front of what used to be the central fountain that greeted park visitors back in the day. This building here used to be for the visitors' lockers and also the first aid medical station for the park. Something to note, just for general bug-out prepping purposes, is that there are a lot of negatives to having your location visible or accessible to others, and the destruction of this place is a great example of that. Eventually, if your place can be found close to a road and nobody's living there full-time, looters and vandals are going to come along, all right? And some of them don't care if the place is abandoned or not. As we approach the lazy river and central island, there's a small little area here off to the side that was once used for the filtration and chlorination of the pools and the lazy river itself. These old tanks and pump housings are all that remains of that system now. Finally, we can head across the bridge here onto the island and get a look at the lazy river area. When the rains come, a good amount of water still gets trapped here for a time, which helps keep the foliage alive. Something of a very unrealistic idea, but still possible, is turning this place into a giant rain catchment system. You already have a good concrete base to work with. It would just be a matter of plugging up all the old pump holes and drains and sealing some cracks, and then installing some direct drainage from the flat island to send the water in, and hey, you would have a lazy river again, sorta. Still, with water being so important for any hope of agricultural activity out here, being able to store up a massive bit of it from rain for irrigation would be something. Mad Max ideas, I guess. But even those kinds of ideas are still good to have for brainstorming. A similar one we tossed around back in the day was using the lazy river itself as a growing area. You would have a decent amount of control over soil composition while filling it, and the concrete would help retain moisture. Then, building a bit of a greenhouse style enclosure over the top would really give you control of the environment. Like I said, real Mad Max world type stuff. Here we can see a bit of standing water now, although the last rains were quite some time ago. And we can also see the prints of animals who have been drawn to it. One final idea and a favorite of mine was turning the lazy river here into a kind of variant of an Earth ship. For those who don't know, an Earth ship is a passive solar home built with natural and recycled materials that's designed to be self-sufficient, off-grid dwelling place, all right? Popular in regions like the desert. They're often made of stuff like old tires, bottles and cans, and reclaimed building materials, and as you can see, there is plenty of that out here. They're engineered to collect their own water, generate their own energy from solar and wind, and produce their own food, and even treat their own wastewater. A greenhouse is typically integrated into the design, allowing people to grow their own food year-round. That's also a key part of the water recycling system. The goal of an Earthship is a complete independence from public utilities for any purpose, making them a highly resilient and self-contained form of housing. An excellent societal disconnect. If you haven't gone down the Earthship rabbit hole online yet, I highly recommend it. Get started by Googling the Taos Earthships, which is a whole community of them in New Mexico. This lazy river could be one long Earthship with a greenhouse segment and another water collection segment. A very interesting idea to think about, although it would take some doing. As we come up out of the lazy river and onto the other side of our island, the first section here was a play area for the smaller children. It had shallow pools and smaller slides, as well as a shaded area for parents to watch from. This is one of those places that really makes me think about the joy and happiness that people once had the opportunity to experience out here. Whenever I make these videos, I'm always curious if somebody who once came here to this spot when it was active will actually see my video. If that's you out there, drop a comment and tell me something about it. I love to hear that stuff. There was another shallow, relaxing pool up here on the right, and then the burned out wreckage to the left of me here is all that remains of the restaurant, the old Rock-A-Hoola Grill. It's crazy to think about how many of the places that I personally know today will also look this way someday. Maybe even someday soon, depending on how our global collapse plays out. No one is more conscious of that collapse than me, and I make sure to keep that awareness in the forefront of my mind at all times. Desert ruins like this water park bring to mind thoughts of both resilience and decay through the passage of time. They represent both the enduring nature of the human spirit alongside the ephemeral nature of human civilization. I travel around to many places that are both beautiful and mysterious, inspiring my imagination about past lives, future survivors, and also serving as a stark reminder that even the most powerful of empires eventually falls, including our current one. And for someone hoping to survive out here after such a fall, these sites also present practical and scientific interest, serving as windows into history, adaptation, and resourcefulness in challenging environments. When collapse does come for us, those of us who spent time studying what that looks like will have an extra survival advantage. Let's take a little drive through the park and then head out to the old water tower. There is a small outbuilding here, and I'm not exactly sure what it was used for. Perhaps a small residence, or maybe even an office for administrators, or a workshop for the maintenance crew of the park. Extra large pile of metal scrap rusting out there. We can see our water tower that would give a very commanding view of the surrounding area. I'm not sure exactly what role it played for the park. I was kind of assuming it was for drinking water as opposed to water for the pools and everything else, but that's just me guessing. In the background there, we can actually see the remains of another old abandoned homestead nearby. Those things are scattered all around the place out here. Let's go down and check it out up close. I do really like being able to share all these places with you guys, my viewers, and I hope you've been enjoying the glimpses into my region out here and some of its mysteries. There's more to prepping and collapse awareness than just stockpiling rice and keeping track of global news, okay? A very big part of it is wrapped up in knowledge and mental conditioning. Spending a lot of time out here in the environment as it may end up looking in a post collapse world, this kind of helps me with both of those things. I get a little knowledge from learning about my surroundings, about the desert, and about what's out here. And mental conditioning comes from spending time disconnected from society for a little while, kind of letting the peace of these dead places calm my mind down and helping me let go of the worries and stresses that societal life piles on us more and more each day. That's a big bonus if you ask me, and I highly recommend it. All right, till next time, my friends, stay safe and stay ready. It's a wasteland out there.